Okay, empowered badass breeders, let's talk about week 3 with your puppies, because this, more than any time, I believe breeders ruin their puppies unintentionally, but we get really excited because we start to see that they're becoming aware of the world. They're starting to vocalize with some meaning. They're starting to go forwards and backwards between weeks 3 and 4. They're starting to recognize the world other than themselves and starting to process and interact and become curious. Or you see the puppies that are really struggling with, holy crap, there's a world outside of me and my mom, and we really have to work harder with them. And the biggest mistake we make is we get too excited and do too much too soon. We think, because they're up walking, because their eyes are open and they're vocalizing and they're mouthing each other. They're starting to display signs of playing and interacting and figuring out the world and how it works within their pack. And they're starting to recognize us. And that does feel really good, I know. But we get too excited and we start upping the curriculum, the intensity, the complexity, how unpredictable it is. We're moving them outside the whelping box to work. So we're taking this like eyes closed, ears closed, everything's safe, everything's content. We nurse, we have the safety. Oh, look at this world. And then bam, we're like, yeah, look at this world. And we give them way too much. And their nerve endings are not fully formed. They're not ready to be pushed in that way. So my biggest advice is when you start showing them different things of the world, curriculum, bringing items in, novelty items, so things that don't move. They're not abrasive to their senses. So if they go up and smell it, there's not something poking. You're not using like a brush from the barbecue, which you can do later for sure. But nothing's moving, they're not having to problem solve anything. Nothing's gonna be abrasive to their little tiny senses that are still forming. So really simple things like a bucket. And then let them decide, do I want to explore this? Do I want to go up and smell it? They'll bark at it. They'll sit and your little ones that are still just really struggling with nerve strength will just sit and cry in the corner, and they'll cry or they'll hide. Don't panic yet. Don't stress yet, but don't force them yet, because more than anything, I'm laying the foundation of, you can trust me and I'll never put you in a situation where you can't, or that I'm pushing you to do something you're not ready for. So I see you. I hear you. You're telling me you're not ready for this. So I'm going to bring mom in. It's amazing how things will change like this. So this bucket that they're having a meltdown over, right? Like super dramatic meltdown. You have some that are just like bopping their nose against it and mouthing it and laying on it and, leaning against it and playing right next to it like no care in the world. And then you have the one in the corner just having a meltdown. Bring mom in. Don't abandon everything yet. Don't force them. Don't pick them up and hold them and coddle them, because now you're teaching them, yes, you should be afraid of the world, and yes, you shouldn't trust me because I put you in this situation to begin with. So huge mistake. Don't pick them up. Don't pet them. Don't even touch them in that state of mind. I don't want that connected at all. I don't want that fear, that emotional state that I'm struggling with confidence and I'm not able to handle this other than just sitting and crying, to have anything to do with my touch, me moving them at all or anything like that. So I'll bring mom in, and it's incredible how quickly that can change their perspective, their frame of mind, their mood. Like all of a sudden they're like meltdown cry. There's like there's this object I don't know that's been put in the middle of my whelping box. My world is over. Oh, my mom's boob. Yay. And they'll just flip like this. And before you know it, that puppy that was having a meltdown is now chasing mom around the bucket, knocking into it to try to nurse. And so what I do for those puppies that are struggling is, guess what? The bucket's just going to stay in there longer. And before you notice, like after they're done nursing, then they waddle on over to it because they have the safety of their mom first. So really utilize, they're going to stay in the whelping box. I don't want a new area with new things. We're going to employ the mom as much as possible to help build trust with me, really is what I'm building, and their environment. Like, hey, people can be trusted. So don't take them out of the whelping box to work at this age. Use the mom. Use items and objects appropriately. Don't force puppies to do things. Focus on, I'm building this foundation of trust and utilizing the safety, security, and innate relationship with the mom to help to continue to do that, so it translates over to me and then to their new owners. This is a really tricky subject. When do you tell clients if a puppy dies in the litter? So here's kind of my broad spectrum answer, as always. And of course, there's so many different variables. Here's what I've learned. I no longer tell clients right away when puppies are born. We wait 1 week. That gives me a little bit of grace that if a puppy dies, something happens, that then I don't have to go back and email to people that we've lost a puppy. Now, pros and cons of that are you need to sell them. You want people to know they're here. You want them to start making decisions. So again, depending on the market, depending on the litter, depending on how full the wait list is, you may opt to be like, I'd rather let people know and give them that extra week. And if I have to go back and say, hey, we lost a puppy, then I will. I will say when we send out that initial email, like, hey, please welcome this litter. We have 8 puppies. And then we do state, like in bold, in the templated email, where we just change a few things. We have 8 puppies. We will do everything in our power to make sure we have 8 at go home. But remember, there's no guarantee. We're at the mercy of Mother Nature, and unfortunately, things can happen. I mean, a mom can step on one jumping up to bark at someone ringing the doorbell. A mom can lay on one. A puppy can just fail to thrive without any answers. Like, there's so many things beyond our control. So we do the best we can to ensure we'll have that many at go home day. But now here's where it gets tricky, and here's where I know a lot of you have asked, like, at what point, if the puppies are 3-4 weeks old and you lose one, what do you say? Do you tell them if they didn't know, whatever? Well, personally, my clients already know how many puppies are in a litter at that point. And then how you tell them or what you tell them, I know can be very, very tricky for some of us because we don't want to create panic. We don't want them to think like, oh, all the other puppies are going to die. So if it was, and this just happens, if it was a tragic accident, you know how the puppy died, you know why the puppy died, and there's no reason that it will affect any of the other puppies, then you just tell them, like, it's a horrible tragedy. Like, our hearts are broken. Life sucks. I hate it. Like, I'm sorry. Like, we lost this puppy. There's no reason it should have happened, but it did. And that's just a part of life, right? And I think overall people understand that. I mean, children die of cancer. That's not fair. It shouldn't happen that way. Whole families shouldn't get obliterated in a DUI accident on their way home from Christmas Eve. Like, terrible tragedy happens. It's not fair. And it can happen to us too with puppies, where they get hung up on their collar or just something tragic happens. If it's never happened to you, I'm so thankful. For those of us that have suffered just stupid, tragic accidents that shouldn't have happened, they're really difficult to handle and manage and process, and makes us feel terrible, right? Like, at the end of the day, they were in our care, and it's a terrible feeling. The question becomes, so for example, I had a litter where 3 puppies died at 3 weeks old. They were at the vet. We were fighting. We did a bunch of testing. They were doing IV fluids. They were doing everything they could for supportive care. And we were testing for everything, and everything was coming back negative. It wasn't parvo, it wasn't coccidia, it wasn't giardia, it wasn't Christosporidium, it wasn't E. coli or salmonella and overgrowth. Everything looked normal and healthy. These puppies were thriving, and like 3 weeks old, within 24 hours, all 3 got really sick. They stopped nursing, they wouldn't nurse, they wouldn't eat. Off to the vet they go. We lost all 3. Okay, that's alarming. Now, that's a really tricky email to write to clients, because I can't say that something else is not going to happen within the litter. We sent these puppies out for necropsy, just as an FYI, educational purposes. We still never found out the reason why these 3 puppies dropped. At that point, I go to the clients and I say, this is what happens. I'm waiting for answers. At any time you feel uncomfortable with this, pull off the list. But at the end of the day, they have their contract guarantee. You could reduce puppies. You could hold on to the puppies and wait for the necropsy results. And I just let people decide, do you want one of these puppies or not? Like, nothing in life's a guarantee. I may have answers. I may not have answers. I never had answers because we never found out what was wrong with them. We did sell them all, and to this day they're all healthy, but those are tricky situations. How do you tell clients, and when do you tell clients you've lost puppies? What's the difference between Panacur and Nemex. And Panacur is fenbendazole, so Panacur is just the name brand. But talking about these two dewormers, I know it used to be you dewormed your puppies 2, 4, 6, 8 every 2 weeks with the Nemex for roundworms, because that's the life cycle of a roundworm. However, fenbendazole came into the scene and did so much more for us and our dogs. Now, if you're trying to go holistic and use like diatomaceous earth or whatever, like, I'm not trying to persuade you in any which way or another. I've tried doing the whole holistic thing. I've tried diatomaceous earth. Everything got worse for me. Me personally, my dogs were more sick. I was sending home sicker puppies. Giardia just spread vampant, and it took me like a year to get back on top of it. So I just don't mess with that anymore. So if you're doing all holistic and don't want to give any medications or vaccines to your puppy, then this is not the video for you. If you're going to use dewormer, I'm just going to share a tip with you, learned through years of trying to figure out not only roundworms, which honestly, if there's one parasite my dogs have, I hope it's roundworms. I know it's disgusting because you can see them, but they're the easiest to eradicate, and if caught in time, do the least amount of damage overall. The blessing with fenbendazole, Panacur, is that it can kill the eggs of the roundworms while it's in the bloodstream of the dog. Nemex does not. Nemex can only kill a live adult worm. So that's why then you have to do it every 2 weeks, because then you got to kill the live ones, then kill the live ones, and kill the live ones that, now become worms and are living in the gut of the puppy. And then hopefully you hope that you've killed all the adults, so there's no more eggs left in their system. The funny thing is about parasites, why they continue to not only survive but thrive, is some of them will lay dormant in the tissue of the dog. So no amount of dewormer is going to change that, because they're not an active infection, so to speak. It only happens when the dog then gets sick, their immune system's lowered, they're stressed, they're pregnant and deliver, and then everything will get reactivated. So what I have seen, without a doubt, if I have a puppy that has had Giardia, rounds, or hooks, I'm going to see that again when they deliver. I'm going to see it in their puppies, because that dog's already had it. They have the parasites living dormant in their tissue. So what I found with fenbendazole is that it will, if treated, prescribed, used correctly, it not only will eradicate and take care of, will not completely eradicate, roundworms and the eggs, the larvae of the roundworms, so any live roundworms and larvae of roundworms, and Giardia. But you have to use it 5 to 7 days in a row for a Giardia infection or potential possible Giardia infection, and typically 3 days for Panacur. I do see, though, more often than not, that you're getting prescribed Panacur for 3 days for Giardia, and that's never going to cut it. And so then we wonder why the dog continues to have problems, or the client continues to reach out and say, we cannot get rid of this Giardia. Our puppy just keeps getting reinfected. And Giardia is a beast to get rid of. I have an entire mini series on what I learned in years of trying to. You can't completely eradicate it from your program or from your dogs. That's just reality. But what can you do to keep it at bay and stay on top of it so that you're not sending puppies home with an active infection? And I spent about, I think, an hour and a half talking about the protocols that I have learned to do and how to treat with not only Panacur, but chlorhexidine and isolation in ways with cones so they can't lick themselves and reinfect themselves immediately. Giardia is really, really tricky. But more than anything, if you're doing Nemex 2, 4, 6, 8, I just giving you a little push to investigate, research, look into this, because I don't have to buy it anymore. I don't treat my puppies with Nemex anymore. I'm not deworming them at 2 weeks old and 4 weeks and 6 weeks and 8 weeks. The first time my puppies get dewormed is at 4 weeks with Panacur for 5 days. And we have seen such a reduction in Giardia, and we haven't seen any roundworms for years. Knock on wood. Thanks for riding shotgun with me today. Bye. Of course, follow your veterinarian's advice. I'm just telling you what I have learned. So there's my disclaimer. Oh, the hate I'll get. No, I'm not a licensed veterinarian. I'm a breeder. I've been doing this for a very, very long time. I've worked closely with my veterinarian. We've both done a ton of research. Dr. Marty Greer, who's a leading veterinarian for breeders that understand how pregnant dams whelp and how infections are spread from mothers to puppies, is the leading force. And this protocol is from her. So I'm not just making this up. I'm not just willy-nilly giving my dogs medication. This is from years of research and data and talking to the experts. So if I can just relay that to you to save a lot of time, money, effort, health of your puppies, it's terrible to see a 4-week, 5, 6, 7-week-old puppy devastated by Giardia, and they can die. And it's so much nicer to send home puppies and educate your clients on how the first 3 to 5 days should be, plus have given them the correct medication prior, right up to going home. We do it 4 weeks and then 7 weeks again for 5 days right before the puppies go home. So the goal is to try to make sure there is no more active infection, and then make sure the clients keep the puppies for 3 days calm, no extra stressors, no treats, no different food, keep them right on course, let them sleep a lot. Kind of like bringing home a newborn. You're not giving them a bunch of different food or different formula every day. We don't want diarrhea. We don't want too much stress, because then those inactive parasites will flourish again, and then we have an infection. So the goal is to always keep on top of it and not create an environment where those little suckers can come back with the force and create issues for us, our clients, and our puppies. Okay, there we go. Thanks for checking with me again for the second time today. Bye.